My mother lied for decades. These tapes exposed everything. My mom hid my real father from me. I found the tapes he made of me growing up, and the truth shattered me. I never expected a cardboard box to be the thing that broke me. It was supposed to be a simple weekend, helping my mom clear out the basement of the house I grew up in. She'd finally decided to sell it. Too big for one person, too many memories, too many creaking steps for a woman in her 50s who insisted she was still young, but whose knees audibly disagreed every time she'd crouch to open another storage bin. The house felt smaller than I remembered, yet heavier, as if every wall absorbed secrets over the years, and now, with the place half empty, those secrets were starting to seep back out. I'd moved out over a decade ago, college, then work, then my own apartment, but this house still felt like the place where my real life started. Or at least where I thought it started. I didn't know then that the foundation of everything I believed about my family was a carefully constructed illusion. That day, we were sorting boxes filled with old clothes, holiday decorations, and the usual junk that accumulates when people stay in one place too long. Mom was upstairs taking a break, probably nursing her coffee and back pain. She'd left me with the easy stuff, or so she thought. I was halfway through a pile of boxes near the old water heater when I saw it, a plain cardboard box, slightly crushed on one side, sealed with decaying packing tape that had long since lost its stickiness. It didn't have a label like most of the others. No Christmas, no kitchen, no baby clothes. Just a box. For some reason, it felt out of place. I pulled it out, coughing as dust puffed up around me. The box was heavier than it looked. Awkwardly weighted. I thought maybe old books. Maybe something metal. I tugged at the tape, but it peeled away easily. The glue was ancient. Inside, stacked neatly in two uneven columns, were VHS tapes. Dozens of them. Most had handwritten labels. Birthday, 1996. Birthday, 1997. Birthday, 1998. And so on. My name wasn't on them. Nothing personal or familiar. Just the word birthday followed by years that aligned perfectly with my childhood. A strange chill settled in my chest. I reached in and picked one up. The plastic case was warm from the basement heat, dusty, slightly sticky at the corners. I turned it over in my hand, looking for any indication that these came from my parents, but the handwriting wasn't my mom's. And it definitely wasn't my stepdad's. The label was careful, small, masculine. And familiar in a way I couldn't explain. I stared at the tape for a long time before realizing I was holding my breath. At that exact moment, Mom called out from upstairs. "You doing okay down there?" "Yeah," I yelled back, though my voice cracked. "Just found some old tapes." There was a pause. An odd pause. "How old?" she asked. "Looks like birthdays?" "From the 90s. Another pause. "Longer this time." "Oh. Those." Her voice sounded strange. Thin. Shaken. I frowned. "Did Dad record these?" A full 3 seconds of silence passed before she answered. "Just don't throw anything out. I'll be down in a bit." My heart started pounding hard enough that I felt it in my throat. There was something in her voice. Something tight, something scared, and for a moment I wondered if I'd stumbled onto something private. Something not meant for me. But they were birthdays. My birthdays. How could they not be meant for me? I didn't wait. I couldn't. I carried the box upstairs, my pulse hammering, the tapes clattering with each step. When I reached the living room, Mom was already there, standing near the couch but not sitting, her eyes locked on the box in my arms. Her face had gone pale. What are those?" I asked. She stared for a moment before answering softly, "You shouldn't open that box." I set it down on the table and pulled out the tape labeled 1996. "I already did." Mom's eyes glistened for a moment. Then she blinked hard, the way she always did when trying to hide emotions. "Can you please put them back?" "No," I said. I was shaking now, holding the tape like it might burn me. "Why? What is this?" Mom let out a breath, a long, trembling breath that seemed to deflate her entire frame, and finally sat on the couch. "I need to tell you something. But it's not easy." My hands tightened around the tape. She squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them again. "Those tapes, they're not from me. Okay, so who recorded them? Mom swallowed hard. They're from your father. I blinked. Dad? But the handwriting. No, she whispered. Not your stepdad. A slow, heavy dread spread across my chest. She took another shaky breath. They're from your real father. I didn't respond at first. I just stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to correct herself, to say she misspoke. But she didn't. She just sat there, hands trembling in her lap, eyes fixed on the box, as if it were alive. My real father? I finally said, the words tasting foreign and heavy on my tongue. Mom nodded, barely. I stopped. My throat tightened. I thought Dad adopted me because Daniel left. Or because he didn't want to be around. The lies I'd believed, the assumptions I'd made my whole life, they all flooded back now with sharp edges. Mom closed her eyes. I know what you thought. I let you think that. I couldn't sit. My body was too restless, too electric with confusion and early anger. I paced the room, the tape still clutched in my hand. Why would my real father record my birthdays? Why would he do it in secret? Why didn't I ever know him? Mom inhaled shakily. It's complicated. It's not complicated, I snapped. You didn't tell me. It wasn't just me, she said quickly. My father, your grandfather, he had a lot of influence in what happened. Grandfather. Cold, distant, always formal. The man who never hugged, never smiled, never approved of anyone, especially not Mom when she was younger. Sit down, Mom said quietly. I did, reluctantly, like my body moved before my mind agreed. She exhaled, gathering herself. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest, she said. I loved Daniel. I really did. But we were young. Too young. And my father had his own ideas about what my future should look like. She looked at me as if trying to read whether I was ready for this. I don't think I was. But she continued anyway. When I got pregnant with you, I was 19. Daniel was 19. I was in community college. He was working at the hardware store, picking up shifts wherever he could. My father hated him. Absolutely hated him. I felt a familiar burn in my chest. Why? Because Daniel didn't come from the right kind of family. She said it with air quotes, bitterness coating her voice. Because he didn't make money. Because he wasn't ambitious in the way my father wanted. Because he had bipolar disorder, mild, manageable, but to my father that meant unstable. Everything about Daniel offended him. I absorbed that. My grandfather, with his perfect sweaters, perfect lawn, perfect contempt, suddenly made even more sense. Mom continued. When I told him I was pregnant, he lost it. Screamed. Told me I was throwing my life away. Told me Daniel would drag me down. He even tried to force me to get rid of you. I inhaled sharply. She looked at me, eyes wet. I didn't. I would never. But after that, everything became a battle. My father made sure of it. My brain was spinning. So Daniel didn't leave? I asked. He didn't abandon us? Mom shook her head. No. He never left willingly. He fought to stay in your life. A lump formed in my throat. The image of the tapes, dozens of them, suddenly looked different. Not creepy. Not strange. But tragic. But if he wanted to be around, why didn't he? Why did Dad raise me? Mom swallowed. Because of the court. My breath caught. What? The court order, she whispered. The one that banned Daniel from seeing you. My whole body froze. A court order? You're telling me my real father was legally banned from me? Why? That's the part one never told you, she said, voice cracking. The part I'm ashamed of. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I should have fought harder. I should have been braver. But I wasn't. And Daniel, he didn't have money. Or lawyers. Or a family to back him. He had nothing except love for you. And that wasn't enough. Not in my father's world. The room felt suddenly small. Like the walls were pressing in. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, trying to steady my breathing. Everything I thought I understood about my childhood was breaking apart like glass. Mom, I said quietly, start from the beginning. Start from Daniel. She nodded, pulling her knees up slightly, hugging herself. I met Daniel at school. He was kind, funny in a quiet way, and he had this way of making me feel like he saw me, not who my parents wanted me to be. Just me. Her face softened with the memory. He'd leave little notes in my locker, help me with homework, walk me home even though he lived in the opposite direction. I was in love with him. The stupid, young, wholehearted kind of love that feels like the entire world. She paused. He wanted to go to trade school. Carpentry. He loved building things. He was always fixing stuff, always dreaming about making furniture. My father called it a poor man's dream. He used to say Daniel didn't have the brains for anything else. My stomach twisted. That man, my grandfather, had always been cold. But now I saw something darker. When I told Daniel I was pregnant, she said, he cried. Not from fear, from joy. He said he'd get another job. Said we'd figure it out. He was ready to be a dad. He was terrified, but he was ready. Her voice wavered. And my father did everything he could to destroy that. I leaned forward. What did he do? Mom looked at me as if deciding how much truth she could give me without breaking me. But then she seemed to realize it didn't matter. The box on the table guaranteed that everything was already broken. When you were born, she said softly, Daniel visited as much as he could. My father refused to let him inside the house, so Daniel and I would meet at the park. He'd hold you for hours. He memorized your face. My heart clenched. You were his whole world. Even when he was struggling with his moods, even when he was exhausted from working 2 jobs, she shook her head, smiling sadly. He adored you. I swallowed hard. So what happened? Why the court? Mom closed her eyes. Because my father set him up. I stared. Set him up? What are you talking about? She took a deep breath. There was a supervised visitation arrangement. Daniel was only allowed to visit you at my parents' house in the living room, with either me or my father present. It wasn't fair, but that's how the court said it while they reviewed everything. I frowned. But he followed the rules? He tried, she said. He did. But one day, one stupid moment, changed everything. Her voice broke, and I knew I was about to hear the thing that ripped Daniel out of my life. Before she could continue, my gaze drifted back to the vase in my hands. Birthday, 1996. The year I turned 3. Something inside me needed to see what was on that tape before I heard the rest. Can we watch one? I asked. Mom stiffened. No. I don't think. I need to, I said firmly. Mom, I need to know what he saw. I need to see what he saw. She hesitated, torn between protecting me and knowing it was already too late. Then she finally nodded. Okay, she whispered. But just the one. We pulled out the old VCR from a storage bin, dusted it off, and connected it to the TV, something we hadn't done since I was a kid watching Disney movies. My hands shook as I slid the tape into the slot. The machine whirred, clicking softly as the tape engaged. Snowy static flickered on the TV for a moment, then cleared. And there I was, 3 years old, wearing a tiny pink dress with frills at the sleeves. My hair was in pigtails, lopsided. Mom never did figure out how to part hair straight. I was holding a balloon, giggling as I toddled toward a picnic table at the park. My stepdad was there, younger, smiling, helping me balance as I climbed onto a bench. My mom was nearby, arranging cupcakes. Other kids ran by, shouting and laughing. But what caught my attention wasn't the scene. It was the distance. We weren't being filmed from the picnic table. We weren't being filmed from the sidewalk. We were being filmed from behind a row of trees. The camera zoomed in, shaky but deliberate. A man's breath, soft, controlled, barely brushed the microphone. And then, in a whisper so quiet I almost missed it, someone said, "That's my girl." My throat closed. The camera lingered on my face. My smile, my messy little pigtails, the frosting smeared on my cheek, like whoever held it couldn't look away if his life depended on it. Mom turned away from the TV, covering her mouth. I couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. The camera zoomed in again as I blew out my candles, and the man behind the lens whispered, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." My chest tightened so fast it hurt. I'd never heard that voice before. But somehow, in some way I couldn't explain, it felt familiar. Like my bones recognized it, even if my mind didn't. The tape played on, me opening gifts, chasing bubbles, hugging Mom, crawling into my stepdad's lap. And the camera never moved from the trees. Never approached. Never crossed a line. Never lingered on anything but me. The devotion was palpable. Undeniable. Heartbreaking. When the tape ended, the VCR clicked softly and spat the cassette out, as if the machine itself was relieved to be done. Mom was quietly crying. I was sitting completely still, numb. That was him, I said finally, barely above a whisper. Daniel recorded that. Mom nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. He recorded all of them. I looked toward the box, the dozens of tapes inside, and suddenly the weight of it felt unbearable. But why from so far away? I asked. Why didn't he come closer? Why didn't he talk to me? Why didn't he even try? Mom rubbed her arms as if she was cold. Because he wasn't allowed to, she said. Her voice was raw. Because the court told him if he ever came near you, he'd go to jail. My breath hitched. What happened? What did he do that was so bad? She swallowed, eyes glassy. That day, she whispered. The day of the violation. I felt the room shrink around us. This was it. The moment everything changed. The moment my father lost me. I braced myself. Tell me, I said. Mom closed her eyes, held her breath for a long moment, then finally spoke. It happened when you were 7 months old. Mom didn't speak right away. She took a slow breath, like the memory itself hurt to touch. You were 7 months old, she repeated softly. Daniel came for a supervised visit. The court required it to be at my parents' house. In the living room, with either me or your grandfather present at all times. I nodded slowly, bracing. It was tense from the beginning, she said. Your grandfather hovered. He never trusted Daniel. Never liked him. He stood there watching the whole visit like he was waiting for Daniel to make a mistake. Her eyes drifted downward, fingers picking at her sleeve. You were fussy that day. Crying, twisting in Daniel's arms. He did everything he could. Rocked you, hummed, bounced you gently. It wasn't working. She wiped her face. And then you reached toward the window. I felt something tighten in my chest. Babies do that, Mom said. You were curious. The sunlight was coming in and you reached for it. And Daniel, he just wanted to calm you. He thought maybe the fresh air would help. She breathed out shakily. He walked toward the front door with you. And I didn't stop him. I didn't think anything of it. I thought he'd just stand on the porch for a minute. The room felt impossibly still. But when he stepped outside, he didn't just stay on the porch, she whispered. He walked down the driveway. Only a few steps. 20 feet. 30 maybe. Just pacing with you. Talking to you. Trying to make you stop crying. My pulse sped up. Was he trying to take me? I asked, hating the question. Mom shook her head sharply. No. He wasn't trying to run. Not even close. He didn't go toward the street. Didn't speed up. Didn't hide. He was just moving. Trying to soothe you. So what happened? Your grandfather came outside, she said, voice tightening. He saw Daniel standing on the driveway, and he lost his mind. I could practically hear it. The slam of the door, the bark of rage, the accusations flying like knives. He stormed out screaming, Mom said. He grabbed you out of Daniel's arms so fast that you started crying harder. He was shouting, you violated the order. You're trying to take her. I told the court you couldn't be trusted. Mom's voice cracked. Daniel froze. He kept saying, I'm sorry, she was just crying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But your grandfather wouldn't listen. He took you inside and immediately called the police. I stared at her. The police? For that. He told them Daniel tried to flee with you. That he went down the driveway without permission. That he was unstable. Dangerous. But that's not true. Mom shook her head, tears slipping down. No. But it didn't matter. Your grandfather had money. Lawyers. He had your grandmother writing statements. Neighbors who heard shouting. They assumed the worst. I felt the wall of injustice slam into me like a physical force. Daniel didn't have a lawyer, Mom continued. He didn't have money. He didn't know how to fight what your grandfather claimed. And the court took his mental health history as proof he couldn't be trusted. I closed my eyes. Everyone failed him. Everyone. From that moment on, she whispered, the judge banned him from all visitation, even supervised. The ruling said contact was not in the best interest of the child. I felt sick, angry, gutted. He lost you in a single moment, Mom said. Her voice was shaking. And he never challenged the ruling. He didn't want to risk making things worse for you. The judge implied if he kept trying, they might file for termination of rights entirely. So he just gave up? No, she said quietly. He obeyed the order. He stayed away. But he never stopped loving you. The box of tapes on the table suddenly seemed like a monument to everything he lost. How many are there? I asked. Mom swallowed. 12. One for every year he could find you. I turned toward the box again, my heart thudding. 12 years. 12 years of standing behind trees, behind fences, across parking lots. 12 years of recording a daughter he wasn't allowed to speak to. I want to see them, I whispered. Mom looked startled. All of them. Yes, I said, voice trembling. Every single one. She wanted to refuse. I could see it in her face. But she also knew she had no right to anymore. So I reached into the box and grabbed the next tape. Birthday, 1997. 4 years old. And I pressed play. Tape 1997, age 4. The screen flickered to life and once again, the image of me appeared, smaller, gap-toothed, spinning in circles on the front lawn of our home. The camera was positioned farther this time, across the street, partially behind a tree. Leaves occasionally blurred the shot as wind blew through the branches. But he was steady, quiet, watching. I saw myself tumbling onto the grass laughing, and then I heard it again. His voice. Soft, barely audible. Look at you, my brave girl. A sting hit my eyes. My 4th birthday party was simple. Some neighbors, a cake, my stepdad lifting me up so I could reach the piñata. The camera never showed Daniel's face, but I could almost feel his smile through the recording, like he was imprinting the memory onto himself. When I blew out my candles, he whispered, make a good wish. But he said it like he wasn't talking to me, like he was talking to the universe. I wiped my face. Mom had her hand pressed to her mouth again. I didn't know he filmed this one, she whispered. I didn't see him that day. He wasn't allowed to be seen, I said softly. I felt the sadness accumulating inside me like heavy water, but I pressed on. Tape 1998, age 5. The tape started with a shaky close-up of my red sneakers as I ran across a playground. Then the camera panned up and found me jumping from the monkey bars, arms flailing wildly. My voice squealed from somewhere off-screen. Mom. Watch me. Daniel zoomed in. Not on the playground. Not on the crowd of kids. Just on me. His whisper was clearer this time. You're getting so big. I felt something break inside my chest. I was 5. He wasn't allowed within 50 yards. But he came anyway, staying just outside the legal boundary, filming a life he should have been part of. Tape 1999, age 6. This one was different. Filmed from a parking lot across from the skating rink. I saw myself inside through the glass, gliding, wobbling, holding onto Mom's hand. My stepdad skated backward in front of me, teaching me how to move my feet. I laughed so loudly I could hear it through the glass. Daniel held the camera steady. Watching. Always watching. You're fearless, he whispered. And then he said something new. Something that made my breath stop. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm so sorry. The way he said it, voice cracking, made me feel as if he had swallowed his grief 1,000 times. Tape 2000, age 7. The 7th birthday was at home, a bounce house in the backyard. This time the camera wasn't behind trees. It was filmed through the slats of the neighbor's fence. The angle was low, awkward, but determined. I was climbing up the inflatable slide, shrieking happily with a group of kids. Daniel whispered, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Then the camera dipped. For a moment he didn't film me. He filmed the ground. Shoes. Leaves. Dirt. I could hear him breathing harder. shaky. And then he whispered, "I miss you." Mom gasped and turned away. I couldn't look away. Tape 2001, age 8. This was the first tape where he spoke more than a few words. The video started with me sitting at a bowling alley, surrounded by neon lights, eating pizza and kicking my legs under the seat. Daniel whispered, 8 years. You're 8 years old. I remember the day you were born. My heart squeezed painfully. Then he said, I held you. I was allowed to hold you then. He sounded older, more tired, more resigned. I felt anger boiling under my ribs. How could a system, a family, a judge, anyone, keep a father away for simply holding a crying baby on a driveway? Tape 2002, age 9. This one was filmed from inside a car, engine off, windows lowered just a crack. He was parked across from the park where my party was held. I rode my new bike in circles, my stepdad jogging behind me, steadying me by the seat. Daniel whispered, That's it. You've got it, as if teaching me from afar. Then, I'm here, baby girl. I'm always here. My vision blurred. Tape 2003, age 10. A swimming pool party. This time Daniel filmed from the chain link fence, gripping the metal so tightly that the camera rattled. I dove into the pool, my friends cheering. And he whispered, I wish I could clap for you. My chest hurt. I pressed my hand there, as if trying to keep my heart from splitting. Tape 2004, age 11. This was the last tape. 11 years old. A backyard barbecue. I was blowing out candles again, surrounded by friends, laughter light. And Daniel whispered the same words he said in the very first tape. That's my girl. Then he added, I hope one day you see these. I covered my mouth, choking back a sob. He knew. He knew somehow that these tapes weren't for him. They were for me. By the time the final tape clicked out of the VCR, I was shaking, with grief, with anger, with the weight of love I never received. Mom sat silently, tears streaming down her face. He loved you, she whispered. More than anything. I'm so sorry. I turned to her slowly, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't a child listening to a parent. I was a woman demanding the truth. What happened? My voice cracked. What really happened to keep him away? Mom hesitated. Then she whispered, That day on the driveway, it wasn't just a mistake. It became a weapon. Mom's face looked haunted, like she was staring at a version of her younger self she no longer recognized. The living room was silent, except for my uneven breathing and the faint hum of the old VCR cooling down. What do you mean it became a weapon? I asked. Mom wiped her face, but her hand shook. Your grandfather, he hated Daniel. And after that day on the driveway, he saw an opportunity. To do what? I whispered. To remove him, she said. Completely. My nails dug into my palms. Mom, what happened? She didn't meet my eyes. When your grandfather ran outside yelling, Daniel froze. He kept saying he was sorry, that he didn't mean to break the rule. He wasn't trying to flee with you. He wasn't even halfway down the driveway. But your grandfather made it sound like Daniel was about to run into the street with you. I felt sick. He took you inside, Mom continued, voice trembling. He called the police. Told them Daniel tried to violate the supervised visitation order. He exaggerated everything. And he made me swear to tell the same story. I recoiled. You lied to the police? She finally looked up, eyes red and devastated. I was 19. I didn't know what to do. My father was screaming, telling me Daniel was dangerous, that he was unstable, that he would ruin my life forever. And I was terrified. Not of Daniel, but of my father. Her voice cracked. I'm not proud of this. I regret it every day of my life. But I didn't argue. I didn't stand up for Daniel. I didn't tell the truth. I just let everything happen. My jaw tightened. The police came, she whispered. My father told them Daniel had tried to leave with you. And when the officers questioned me, I hesitated. Just one moment. And that was enough. They heard fear in my voice, fear my father put there, and they believed his version. I felt anger bubbling hot in my chest. So what did they do? They didn't arrest him, she said. They warned him. But the damage was already done. My father filed an emergency petition with the court, claiming Daniel had violated the supervised visitation order. He used the police report as proof. And the judge believed him, I said flatly. She nodded. Your grandfather brought up Daniel's bipolar diagnosis. His low-paying job. His age. His lack of stable housing at the time. He painted him as unstable, irresponsible, dangerous. And because of the temporary order violation. She inhaled. They took away his visitation. Completely. My breath caught. That fast. That fast, she whispered. The judge said the violation made it clear Daniel was a risk to the child's safety. He banned Daniel from seeing you. Even supervised. Even through a third party. I leaned back, feeling like the room was tilting. He lost everything in one moment, Mom said softly. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. But it happened. I clenched my fists. You could have fought. You could have told the truth. I know, she whispered. I should have. But I was scared. And my father, he was relentless. He convinced me Daniel was the wrong kind of person to raise a child with. And after the court order, he made sure Daniel never came near the house again. Her shoulders shook. I hated myself for it. I still do. But by the time I realized the truth, that Daniel wasn't dangerous, that he wasn't unstable, it was too late. You were 3, and then 4, and then 5. And telling you would have meant admitting everything. Saying you chose the comfortable lie, I murmured. She didn't deny it. I married your stepdad when you were 4, she said quietly. He loved you immediately. He wanted to adopt you. And I let him. Because I thought giving you a stable father was better than letting you grow up with questions. My stomach twisted. And Daniel? Did he know you were getting married? He did, she said. I told him. And he said he was glad someone would love you the way he couldn't. He asked if he could at least send a letter for you one day. So you'd know he existed. Mom's voice broke. I told him no. I told him it would confuse you. My throat burned. And the tapes. My voice was barely audible. How did you get them? Mom swallowed. The year before he died, he mailed them to me. My heart lurched. All at once. She nodded. Yes. A box showed up on the porch. No note. No explanation. Just the tapes. All of them. She blinked hard. I knew immediately what they were. I recognized his handwriting. I opened one, just for a second. And when I saw his shadow behind the trees, holding a camera, I couldn't do it. Her voice cracked. I couldn't face the truth. Couldn't face what I let happen. She covered her face. So I hid them in the basement. And I prayed you'd never find them. I stared at her, heart pounding, mind spinning. So you hid my father, I said quietly. And then you hid everything he left behind. She sobbed. Yes. And you let me believe he abandoned me. She nodded. I did. And I'm so sorry. The silence that followed was suffocating. And then something inside me snapped. I stood up. I need to go. Please. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. I need air, I said. I need space. Her face crumpled, but she didn't stop me. I walked out, keys in hand, heart pounding, vision blurred. And for the first time in my life, I went searching for my real father. I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes before I could even turn the ignition. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my head buzzing with too many thoughts crashing into each other. Daniel hadn't abandoned me. He hadn't walked away. He hadn't chosen to disappear. He'd been erased. Erased by a man who cared more about class and reputation than truth. Erased by fear, youth, money, and the weight of a system that listens to the loudest voice, not the honest one. I started driving with no direction at first, just letting movement calm me. Letting the world blur until my heart stopped pounding so violently. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a quiet library, the one I used to study in during high school. It was empty, calm, familiar. I sat at a corner table, opened my laptop, and typed his name, Daniel Carter. Common enough. But I knew the state, the city, roughly the age he would be. And with a father who'd loved me that intensely, I figured he couldn't have moved far. Not really. Not from the place where he used to see me. I scrolled for a minute. And then I froze. At the top of the page was an obituary. Daniel James Carter, 1974 to 2016. He died when I was 23. The same year the tapes arrived. My lungs tightened until I couldn't breathe. He'd mailed them because he knew. He knew he was dying. He knew he'd never meet me. He knew his last chance to give me anything was to send the only pieces of him he had left. I could barely read the obituary. It was short. Plain. No children listed. No spouse. Just survived by a sister. A sister. He had family. Someone still alive. Someone who might know about me. My hands trembled as I traced the name listed under survived by Margaret Carter, his older sister. And below that, an address. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just drove. 20 minutes later, I was standing on an old wooden porch, feet rooted to the spot, staring at a door I wasn't sure I had the right to knock on. But I did. I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. And the door opened. A woman in her 50s stood before me, gray hair tied back, eyes sharp, cautious. She looked me up and down. Yes. I swallowed hard. Hi. My voice faltered. I'm sorry to bother you. My name is. I know who you are, she said softly. My breath caught. She stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in. Margaret led me into a small living room lined with bookshelves and framed photographs. The house smelled like lavender and old wood, a lived-in space, quiet but warm. A comfort that felt strangely familiar. She motioned for me to sit. I did, though my heart was racing. She settled across from me and studied my face. I could tell she was searching for him in me. And when she finally found what she was looking for, her expression softened. You have his eyes, she said. My throat tightened. That's what my mother said too. Margaret smiled sadly. She wasn't lying about that. I hesitated. Do you know why I'm here? She nodded. I figured the day would come. I just didn't think it would take this long. I swallowed. My mom finally told me the truth. About the court order. About the tapes. I didn't know he mailed them. I didn't know any of it. Margaret's eyes welled for a moment. He wanted you to know. But not in a way that would hurt you. He spent half his life hoping you'd come find him someday. But he never wanted to force anything on you. I nodded, blinking back tears. Can you tell me about him? I asked. Everything? The truth. Margaret folded her hands in her lap. The truth is messy, she said. And painful. But you deserve it. She inhaled deeply and began. Daniel was gentle, she said. Sensitive. He felt things deeply. Too deeply sometimes. He struggled with keeping jobs when we were younger, not because he didn't work hard, but because he took every criticism personally. But when he met your mother, I'd never seen him so happy. I listened carefully, trying to imagine the boy he once was. He told me she was the love of his life. He said she understood him, accepted him, that she made him want to be better. Margaret sighed. But her father hated him. Hated everything about him. Not because Daniel was bad, but because he was poor. Because he didn't come from money. Because he wasn't college-bound. Because he had bipolar type 2. She shook her head. Back then, people didn't understand mental health. They saw the diagnosis and decided everything else about someone's character. And when your mother got pregnant, she continued, the grandfather lost it. He blamed Daniel for ruining her life. He threatened to help her only if she cut Daniel out completely. I clenched my fists. I knew that part. But she didn't, Margaret said. Not at first. They tried to raise you together. Daniel was proud to be your father. He took pictures of you every time he saw you. He would come home after a visit and talk about your smile for hours. My heart ached. But then that day happened, Margaret said. The driveway, I whispered. She nodded. Your grandfather had already asked for supervised visitation. It wasn't because Daniel did anything wrong. It was because your grandfather told the court Daniel was unpredictable. Dangerous. A risk. I grit my teeth. But Daniel didn't argue, she said. He just wanted to see you. Wanted to hold you, even if it meant being watched like a criminal. She wiped her eyes. That day, you wouldn't stop crying. Your mother left the room for a moment, and Daniel, being Daniel, followed his instincts. He stepped outside for fresh air. Thought the sunshine might calm you. She paused. That simple act, walking outside with you, that was enough for your grandfather to explode. I looked down. Mom said he filed an emergency petition. He did more than that, Margaret said quietly. He told the police Daniel tried to leave the property. Told the court Daniel was unstable. Said he was afraid for your safety. He exaggerated every detail. She swallowed. And the judge believed him. Because your grandfather had money. Lawyers. Influence. He spun a calm father soothing his child into a kidnapping attempt. I felt the wind knocked out of me. So what did Daniel do? I whispered. Margaret looked at me with eyes full of grief. He obeyed. She clasped her hands together. The judge threatened jail time if he violated the order again. So he didn't. He stayed away. Every birthday he stood at a distance. Every year, he filmed from somewhere he hoped was safe. My chest tightened painfully. He thought maybe when you turned 18, you might come find him, she said. He imagined you showing up at his door one day. He never stopped dreaming about it. Tears blurred my vision. But he never wanted to ruin your life, Margaret added gently. So he never reached out. Never wrote. Never approached you. He obeyed even when it broke him. A tear rolled down my cheek. So the violation, I whispered, wasn't a crime. It was just him stepping outside. She nodded. It was just him being a father. And that was the moment I realized. Everything I'd ever believed about my life was built on a lie. I sat with Margaret for what felt like hours. Part of me wanted to stay there forever, soaking in every detail of Daniel's life. Part of me wanted to run, scream, demand an explanation from the universe for how cruel it had been to him. To me. But there was something else I needed. Can I see where he lived? I asked. Margaret nodded. Of course. She led me down the hallway to the last door on the right. I knew it even before she opened it. It felt like his room. Even though I had never met him. Never heard his laugh. Never seen his face in person. Margaret opened the door gently. And the air changed. It wasn't dramatic or eerie. It was quiet. Reverent. As though the room itself had been waiting. The walls were painted a soft beige. A simple bed. A desk. A bookshelf filled with woodworking magazines, notebooks, a few worn novels. Nothing extravagant. But then I saw the corner. The corner that took my breath away. A small table, lit by the sunlight from a window. And on it, photos of me. So many. More than I could count. Photos from birthday parties. School photos taken from afar. Me walking to class. Me running around at recess. Me riding a bike. Me sitting on the front steps of my childhood home. Me holding my stepdad's hand. Me laughing with friends. He'd been there. For everything. You should sit, Margaret whispered, guiding me toward the chair beside the table. My legs barely worked. I sat, trembling, staring at the life he'd watched but never touched. He developed every photo himself, Margaret said softly. He said it made him feel closer to you. I wiped my face, tears falling silently. What else is here? I asked in a whisper. Margaret motioned to the bookshelf. He kept journals, she said. Letters he never sent. Gifts he bought but never gave. Everything he couldn't be for you, he kept here. I reached toward the shelf with trembling fingers. On it I found a birthday card addressed to my sweet girl, age 3, a small wooden toy horse, carved by hand, a journal labeled for when she finds May, a box full of unopened birthday gifts, a stack of videotape labels he never used. My breath broke. I picked up the journal and opened to the first page. The handwriting was small, careful, familiar from the tape labels. If you're reading this, it means you found me. Or maybe I found you. I covered my mouth, crying into my palm. Margaret placed a gentle hand on my back. There's more, she said softly. She walked to the closet and pulled out a large plastic container, the same size as the box my mother had hidden in the basement. Only this one was labeled clearly. For her when it's time. My knees nearly buckled. He worked on this box for years, Margaret said. He didn't know when he'd see you. but he believed it would happen eventually. He wanted you to know the truth, but he wanted it to be your choice. I whispered, "Why didn't you send it after he died?" Margaret sighed. "I tried, but I couldn't find you. Your mother changed your last name, moved houses. You weren't on social media. I even tried your stepfather's work address once, but I never got anything back." I blinked. "He didn't want to intrude," she said. "Even after death, he didn't want to disrupt your life." I touched the box gently, as if afraid it would break. "Can I open it?" I whispered. Margaret nodded. "Of course. It's yours." At that moment, I felt something settle inside me, something painful but grounding. Daniel loved me. He never stopped. Not for 1 year. Not for one birthday. Not for one breath. And now, it was time for me to know him. The box was heavier than it looked. Not physically. Physically, it was just plastic and dust and taped edges. But emotionally, lifting it felt like lifting the weight of the years he carried alone. Margaret helped me set it on the carpet. My hands hovered over the lid for a moment before I opened it. Inside were layers. Layers of a life he lived without me. 1 letters. Dozens of envelopes, none addressed, all dated with years between 1996 and 2015. I pulled one out randomly, 1999, and opened it. His handwriting wavered slightly, as if he wrote it slowly, thoughtfully. It said, "You looked so happy in the skating rink today. I'm sorry I can't hold your hand when you fall. Maybe one day you'll read this and know I was trying." I pressed the letter to my chest and inhaled shakily. I never knew him, but I missed him. 2 gifts, wrapped in faded paper, the kind you buy on sale after Christmas, were small presents. A puzzle, a tiny wooden horse, a necklace with a heart-shaped pendant, a book of fairy tales, bracelet, a little wind-up music box. Each one had a sticky note. Age 4, age 7, age 9. He planned birthdays he couldn't attend. I held the music box and wound it. The melody was soft, crackling slightly. Cheap, simple, heartfelt. Margaret watched me, her expression gentle but pained. "There were years he couldn't afford gifts," she said quietly. "When money was tight. He had trouble keeping steady work. But he always tried." I nodded, my hand still on the music box. I didn't know how long I had been crying. A minute. An hour. Time didn't exist in that room. 3. The final journal. At the bottom was a thick, worn notebook labeled, "For when she knows everything." I opened it. The first page was dated 2015. "I'm sick. The doctors say it's bad. I don't know how much time I have. I wish I had more time to find her, but I know it would hurt her life. Her mother built a world that doesn't have room for me." My heart clenched painfully. I won't break the order. Even now. Even if it means dying without hearing her voice. But I want her to know I loved her. I want her to have these tapes. I closed the journal, pressing my forehead against it. Margaret put a hand on my shoulder. "He mailed the tapes the week he died," she whispered. "He knew he wouldn't make it." I shook my head slowly. "I never got to meet him," I whispered. "Not even once." Margaret's voice broke. He genuinely believed that showing up would destroy your life. He thought he was protecting you." I covered my face with both hands as the grief tore through me. Daniel spent his entire adult life loving a daughter he couldn't touch, watching her but not approaching, recording her but not speaking, missing her, and letting her live without him because he thought it was the right thing. I finally looked up at Margaret. Can I stay a little longer?" She nodded. "Stay as long as you need." I stayed hours, reading letters, touching gifts, absorbing the life of the man who never got to be my father. And when I finally stood to leave, Margaret hugged me. "Daniel would have been so proud of you," she whispered into my hair. "More than you will ever know." I held on to her like I was holding on to a piece of him. "I wish he'd known that I would have loved him," I whispered. "He did," she said softly. "Even if you didn't know him yet, he believed there was love waiting for him someday." I left her house just as the sun was beginning to set. The sky was orange and gold and fading blue. And all I could think was, he watched so many sunsets alone. I wish I could have given him just one. I didn't go home that night. Not to my place. Not to my mother's. I drove aimlessly for a while, stopping in parking lots, crying in fits, trying to reconcile the truth with the life I knew. Eventually, I ended up at my stepfather's house. When he opened the door, surprise flickered across his face, followed by concern. "Hey," he said gently. "Your mom called. Said you left upset." "She lied to me," I said, my voice raw. "For my whole life." He stepped back slowly, gesturing me inside. And when I sat on the couch, shaking, he sat across from me quietly, like he always did when I was a kid and didn't want to talk. "What happened?" he finally asked. I told him. Everything. The tapes. Daniel. The court order. The truth about the driveway. The fact that he had mailed them right before he died. The room full of photos. The gifts. The journal. My stepfather listened without interrupting. His expression darkened, softened, then broke entirely. When I finally finished, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to you, I didn't know all of that." "You knew he existed," I said quietly. He nodded slowly. "I did. But your mother, she told me things I believed. Things about him being unstable, dangerous, that he didn't want to be involved. She said he agreed to the adoption." I shook my head. He never agreed. He inhaled sharply, pain flickering in his eyes. "I loved you," he said. "I love you still. But I didn't know the truth. Not all of it. And I should have asked more questions. I should have pushed harder. I should have done better." For the first time I saw him cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears from a man who had never been anything but steady. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you from this. I'm sorry I replaced someone who didn't deserve to be erased." I wiped my cheeks. "I don't blame you," I said. And I meant it. He reached across the small table and placed his hand over mine. "I wasn't your real father," he said softly. "But I tried to be a good one. I hope one day you can forgive me for the parts one didn't know." I squeezed his hand back. "I don't blame you," I repeated. And then, after a long pause, I added, "But I can't look at Mom the same way." He nodded, eyes full of sorrow. "That's fair." Talking to Mom again. It took me 2 more days to return to her house. She opened the door slowly, face swollen from crying. "I didn't know if you'd come back," she whispered. "I had to," I said. "We need to talk." We sat at the kitchen table, the same place she used to braid my hair for school, slice apples, help me with homework. I looked at her. Really looked at her. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I asked quietly. She broke down. "I was a coward," she said. "Your grandfather scared me. And then, once your stepdad adopted you, I thought I was sparing you. I told myself it was for your own good. But really, I was protecting myself." I swallowed hard. "You took him from me," I whispered. And she nodded. "I did," she said through tears. "And I'll never forgive myself." We cried together. Painful, messy grief that spanned decades. Eventually I asked, "Did you love him?" She closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "More than anything. And that's why it hurt so much to lose him. I couldn't face the truth of what I'd done. So I buried it. And I buried him." We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "Are you going to hate me forever?" I looked at her, the woman who raised me, who was flawed and young and scared when she made the worst decisions of her life. "No," I said softly. "I'm not going to hate you." She exhaled a sob. "But I'm not going to pretend it didn't break something." Her face filled with grief, but she nodded. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn your forgiveness," she said. I didn't answer. Because forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow, painful walk. And we were only at the beginning. It took me 3 weeks to process everything. 3 weeks of reading Daniel's letters. 3 weeks of watching the tapes again and again. 3 weeks of replaying the life of a man who was always there, just never close enough. Eventually, I knew what I had to do. I bought a converter, hooked up the old VCR, and digitized every tape. Hours and hours of him filming me. Hours of devotion from afar. Then I compiled the footage into a single video, raw, unedited. No narration. No explanations. Just a silent father watching his daughter grow. At the end, I added a single sentence. I wish I'd known you were there. I sent the video to Margaret, to my mother, to my stepfather, and then I uploaded a private version for me, for the little girl he loved but couldn't reach, for the woman who finally knew the truth. Sometimes at night, I watch one of the tapes again, not because I enjoy the pain, but because it's the only time I can hear his voice. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Make a good wish. That's my girl. These were the only memories I'll ever have of him. Not warm hugs. Not bedtime stories. Not scraped knee kisses. But whispers from behind trees. From behind fences. From the edges of my life. He didn't get to raise me. He didn't get to know me. He didn't get to hear me say his name. But he loved me. And now I know. That love, quiet, patient, forbidden, is mine to carry. And I do. Every day.